Hi everybody, it's me Willow and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm back with another fun video for all of you guys today as we are shortly getting into October, more spooky season. I am trying to wrap up all of the remainder of my TIFF content. So today we have my TIFF50 ranking video. I'm finally going to go through every single one of the titles that I was able to see this year at TIFF and give you guys my opinions on them. So we're going to rank them. I got to see 31 titles at TIFF50 this year. I'm pretty proud of that, honestly. I was able to see quite a bit, and I didn't go to the last day because I was feeling pretty sick. So I feel good, and I'm ready to dive into this list and let you all know what I think of my TIFF50 rankings. If you guys want to follow along, I'll have it on the side, but also go check out my Letterboxd. It's Willow D Steele. It's always linked below. I have a list specifically made for my TIFF50 rankings. So go check out that list as we dive in. Now, I will give a little disclaimer just because this film is at the bottom of my list doesn't mean I didn't like it. There were different aspects about every single title that I saw at TIFF that I enjoyed. I wouldn't say the ones that are at the bottom of my list I hate. I didn't think I hated any single title that I saw, but there are, greater cons to my viewing experience than pros, unfortunately. So just wanted to put that little disclaimer out there. At number 31, I have The Sun and the Sea. I feel bad that this is at the bottom of my list because this is a debut film from director Stroma Carnes. And there is lots of great things about this film. I did think it was very pretty, and I think the coming of age storyline is very relatable to a lot of people. I also thought it was interesting to kind of bring our characters into a more isolated setting, but I think a lot of the payoff is not given to the audience at the end. They do introduce certain storylines that are not fully resolved by the ending, and I also had a big problem with hating the protagonist. The protagonist was just so arrogant. You really are supposed to hate him, I think, and then try and grow to love him throughout the course of the film. But it was just hard for me to watch. I have a big thing against like testosterone, ego driven films, and this has the resemblance of that at the first half of the film. So that kind of irked me. But again, there are some things about this film that I do like. I think the cinematography is the best part of the film. It's very beautiful, the locations that they shot at. I also think the incorporation of sign language with certain characters is very intriguing. We often don't have many characters who are deaf or do some sort of sign language representation or lip reading. So I liked that as well, and how it was just kind of like fully incorporated into the film. So yeah, unfortunately, The Sun and the Sea is number 31 on my list. At number 30 on my list is Fuck My Son from director Todd Ronhell. This is an adaptation from the comic book of the same name. This was a Midnight Madness, and because this isn't at the bottom of my list, is because I had such a fun time at the Midnight Madness. It was honestly such a great experience, and I think if I saw this at the 4 p.m. showing on, I think it was the Thursday it was playing, I would not have enjoyed this film as much as I did in the Midnight Madness setting. It was just perfect for Midnight Madness, so kooky, crazy, but it just does not have a great resemblance of a plot. Obviously, it's trying to be a little bit of like a satire on traditional horror films, but I don't think it hits the right notes. There's also been a lot of criticism about the use of AI in the film. There is a couple scenes near the beginning of the film that use AI, and then there's also, I think, scenes throughout that are used with AI as well. So, very disappointing because when I was at the Midnight Madness with the director, he was speaking so proudly of promoting, independent film and how this is a movie theater film. It has to be put in movie theaters for that experience. And it just kind of like juxtaposes using AI, what he's saying. So, unfortunately, I do have this at number 30 just because I do have issues with some of the narrative, and then also the usage of AI is just something I'm completely against, and I really don't think it can be. I don't like the idea of it being used to try and make advantages and make it like easier. I just don't think. I think that gives an excuse to be continued to be used in film, and I don't want that. So, Fuck My Son is number 30. Number 29 is another directorial debut, unfortunately, and this is California Scheming from actor James McAvoy. He is directing this film for the first time, and I just don't think it hits the right notes. I do think it's very intriguing as half a Scot. I do like the idea of this rap group feeling like they cannot get any label to sign them because they're Scottish, so they lose their accents and come up with a completely different backstory of how they are from California, and then they get signed to a record label and everything is kind of like revealed, and it's also dealing with the ramifications of becoming famous and having a lot of access to money and drugs and kind of losing yourself within the fame. So I do think certain aspects about this is like intriguing, but I just didn't love it. I know some people did enjoy it, but I just kind of felt like it just didn't push anything for me as like a musical biopic. I feel like there's so many of those these days. They can follow a generic formula, and I feel like California Scheming also does that. It doesn't really push and try and make a difference in this genre, which I feel like they could have with this interesting narrative with the Scottish colonialism and losing their language and their accent and the threat of Britain and stuff like that. So I think that would have been really intriguing. And then also having James McAvoy cast himself as the Scottish music representative who signs on these artists who are apparently from California, but they're actually, from Scotland. So I think that would have been also intriguing if they did more with him. Like he just didn't, he's just kind of there and they don't really do anything with his character. So, yeah, this one definitely fell flat for me. I was also feeling sick during this film. Like I was starting to feel kind of nauseous. This was on, I think, the second last day for me, and I was kind of itching to get out. I was in the front row, so I just don't think this whole film and then the overall experience, unfortunately, this is near the bottom of my list. At number 28, I have a Canadian film. I have Little Lorraine, which is directed by Andy Hines. This is starring Stephen Amell. I went to go see it for him. It also has Sean Astin in it. Unfortunately, his role is very small, but we gotta go support our new SAG president. So I did think this film was intriguing, also similar to The Sun and the Sea. It's very gorgeous, so beautiful, shot in Cape Breton. So definitely I would suggest go seeing this film just for like the gorgeous landscapes, the beautiful water scenes. But again, this one falls short. A lot of the films near the bottom of my list have really intriguing storylines, great cinematography, the acting is pretty top notch as well, but the narrative, it just really, get lost on me. They don't have enough punch, and I think this one was very interesting because it's about this like heist with these miners and their mine collapses and it's not safe to work in anymore. So Stephen Amell's like long lost uncle comes back out of the blue and offers him and his friends this job on a lobster boat, and they think they're just fishing for lobster, but it turns into a drug heist. And I thought it was very intriguing, but it didn't have that power that I wanted. And unfortunately, I just was left kind of wanting more. I really did like the ending, and that had like the passion and the fiery energy that I wanted throughout the entire course of the film. So that did make me a little upset, but I put it up higher because I do think it had great bones to it, and I think there are really strong moments from the different actors like Stephen Amell. J Balvin also gives a really great performance as kind of a twist on the stereotype that a lot of South Americans face in cinema. This bias that they are often involved with drug smuggling, kind of like the narcos of it all, and this kind of flips on its head. J Balvin's character is a Colombian, like, border security FBI agent who is investigating this drug smuggling happening in Cape Breton. So I thought it was really intriguing how they flipped that on its head. So kind of pushed it a little bit higher up in my list. At number 27, I have the new film from Chris Evans and Anna Taylor-Joy, Sacrifice. This is directed by Roman Gavaras. And again, very similar criticism to the other films that I have lower on my list. I think the cinematography in this film is beautiful. They shot it in Greece, features a real life volcano, and I think it was really gorgeous, like all the different aerial scenes, and we get to see a lot of stuff like in like valleys in these caves, and I think that was really cool. I don't love the narrative of this film. We kind of have like this sci-fi mythical element with Anna Taylor-Joy's character, and she's like involved in this like climate change cults, and I just don't think any of that climate change paranoia really paid off for me in the end. We have this big grand scene at the end, and it just did not work for me, so that's why it's much lower on my list. I do think the performances were pretty fantastic. I love when Chris Evans does a more slimy, grungier character like he does in this film. I also think Anna is always super powerful, and I love her in everything she does, even The Gorge. Like, she's just fantastic. I also think Vincent Cassonette is very great in the film too. He has few strong scenes, so really did like him. I wish Salma Hayek was used more in the film. She's only used sparingly. Charlie XCX is also in the film too, very, very sparingly as well. But I do think the concept, once again, intriguing, like the performances. I think the production design, the costume design were very, very cool. Like the different like climate paranoia aspects kind of just juxtapositioning against the rich narrative that's also going on. So I do like it, but it's just lacking the full development for me, and that ending just did not work. Next on my list would be the closing night film, which is Peak Everything from director and Edmond. I thought this was an interesting film, once again, kind of playing into climate change paranoia, the idea of trying to meet somebody during this like crazy time that we're living in, and having a lot of anxiety and trying to deal with that, and finding, codependence in others. So I do think this was very intriguing. I think it's really funny as well. I really did like the humor. I think Patrick Yvonne and Piper Perabo are great in the film. I think they have very interesting chemistry. I saw this with my friend, and it also is like a French film. I think the director is French, but it's like Quebecois because it's set in Quebec. And then we also go back and forth between Sudbury, Ontario. So I just thought that was hilarious. But my friend said she thought it was very French. The humor and the quirks in the film were very French. So if you're not interested or like used to like that international intrigue, then this one wouldn't really be for you. I know this one played, I think, at Cannes. I believe it premiered there earlier this year. So that one, it definitely fits in with that vibe. People did like this one. People were laughing. I thought it was really funny, but there's definitely some things that just don't work about it. There is like some excess like sexual content in the film that I didn't think was necessary in a lot of the scenes. Again, kind of like a French nuance to it. I also don't think the whole climate change paranoia really worked with this either. Strong performances, but at the end, similar to Sacrifice, it just doesn't really come together at the end for me. I think if they wanted to do more of an Adam and Eve kind of metaphor, if they leaned into that more, I think it would have paid off more for me with the whole climate change anxiety, but they didn't really go for it. So I fell short with this one. The next film on my list is Etropia from director Pete O's. This was on the opening night of TIFF. I was able to rush this film. It was actually my first film of the festival and my first successful rush. This had Charlie XCX in a starring role, so I was very intrigued to see her. It also has Jeremy O'Harris in a performance, and I believe he's also a producer on the film, so I was very intrigued for both of those like actors. And I think P.O.'s camera style is very intriguing. This film really reminded me of Pickpocket, that French New Wave film. I really liked the handheld feel. We also heard in the Q&A how a lot of the scenes were kind of just made up on the spot. There's this one scene where this male character is just like walking in the rain, and that just happened, sporadically. They decided to do that one day and they ended up putting it in the film. So it's definitely like handheld feeling. It's more organic and raw, and that's also to its detriment sometimes. I feel like the characters don't always live up to what we're hoping they would, especially Charlie XCX's character. I don't know if it's just how she was written, or if it's because, they were writing her as they were going, or if it's because it's Charlie and she's not really a seasoned actor. It just doesn't always hit for me, but we do have a couple monologues with Charlie that I think are very passionate and moving. I also really enjoyed the other female actress, Lena Gora. I think she was very empathetic, and I liked the different dynamics from her character and going back and forth between Charlie's character and then also her other Polish girlfriend, the different dynamics of like giving in to this codependency that she has with Charlie's character and how she knows that's toxic. It divides her from the other people who are currently in her life, and I thought that was very intriguing. I also like what PO's does with the editing. He'll often kind of cut a scene at a very abrupt moment, and we'll have like the screen just completely covered in one color, so like maybe all pastel pink, and we'll have a lot of Polish club techno music playing, and then we'll go back to a new scene, and that pink color will be like a focus in that scene, and then we like go back just like into the narrative. So I thought that was very intriguing, but again, there were certain parts of the film that just are lacking. I think with the character development and the writing. I also think the film was very short. It's under 90 minutes, so I think that was to its detriment as well. I think maybe if they added 20 more minutes to the film, we could have developed Charlie's character, specifically her relationship with her boyfriend, and also more her relationship with Lena's character and their whole friendship and how it's based around the volcanoes erupting. So I would have been more intrigued if we had a little bit more time to the film. Next, I have Scarlet, which is an adaptation or reimagining of William Shakespeare's Hamlet. This is from a female perspective, and it's from the director Mamoru Hosoda. I think that's how you pronounce the director's name. I thought this was really gorgeous. I got to see it on IMAX during the festival, so that was crazy. It was also a rush. I've been excited about seeing this film because it's been getting a lot of hype from pre-award season predictions. I definitely think it'll probably have a strong chance of getting into Best Animated Feature because it's not a super competitive year. I know a lot of my friends did not enjoy this film. They thought it was really boring and flat, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was very interesting. I'm a big Hamlet fan. It doesn't really push much past that. My biggest criticism is that it doesn't try to explore anything new. It's very standard with its narrative and then one or two things just to grab some more empathy and make it not completely the 3.5 hour play that Hamlet can be. So I do think the visuals are very gorgeous, and I like a lot of the powerful scenes when Hamlet is using her powers, specifically in the scenes of like the afterlife when she's kind of like falling and she's dying in certain scenes and coming back to life. I thought it was very intriguing. There's like this dance montage. I like the dance montage. It does feel very out of place in the film, if I'm being honest, but I did like it because I got the intended effect, I think, which was to feel emotional and be like, oh, all she wants is for a world to exist without this war, and what can she do to achieve that? So I guess it does kind of try and change things up from the traditional story of Hamlet a little bit. I just don't think it fully is able to grasp that nuance and originality, unfortunately. But I still did enjoy it. I did give it 3 stars. I do think it's pretty strong, but there were some things I think it could have improved on. Next on my list is the TV series Black Rabbit. I was able to see this during such a long rush. I was able to get into this after being rejected from multiple of the screenings that I wanted to see, and I had no idea this was a TV series until the second episode started playing, and I was like, oh, okay, this is why I did not understand the pacing of this at all. This stars Jude Law and Jason Bateman. He also directs a couple episodes, I believe. And then we also have Troy Kotsur in the series, and he is the standout. He won Best Supporting Actor a couple years ago for Coda. And when he comes in episode 2, everything just turns around. I think Troy's character is so intriguing with him and his sons and how they are these like mobsters, really intriguing, and how like they use the sign language in it is also very cool. I think the Black Rabbit restaurant is also very like suave, and all of the underlying crime that's going on around the location of the restaurant is very intriguing too. Like I mentioned, I did not love the pacing of the first episode, and I thought that the pacing of the second episode was a little off too, but Troy sold me on the series, so it is currently on Netflix, but I have to finish it. I just haven't had a moment to get to the last couple episodes, but they did hook me, so I will be watching the rest of the series. At number 22, I have the animated feature Barushka. This is from director Aura Barkin and Miriam Bina. I think that's how you pronounce their names. I thought this was very intriguing. After I messed up some rushes, I was able to get into this one. It was my first animated feature of the festival, and I usually don't lean towards animated features, but I actually was able to see quite a few this year, and I love that. Trying to branch myself out from my normal genres. This is also like a queer film, so I really did like the narrative. I think my biggest criticism is that it was just a very short film. I believe it was under 90 minutes, and I think if it was a little bit longer, we could have developed a bit more of the queer storyline, specifically the storyline that is involving Barusha and her mother. It's kind of like a very tumultuous relationship, and if we had maybe 20 more minutes to the film, we could have developed that relationship and some more of the relationships with Barushka and their lovers. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of this film because I thought the visuals were very intriguing. I also thought it was a little uncanny just seeing how the like Barushka is like a dog and she interacts with like a cow and all these other animals, but they're like personified. So it's a little uncanny valley if we're being honest. But I thought it was a really cool animation style, really original. I really liked how it was kind of, I think it was influenced by Moroccan culture, but I liked a lot of the visuals that kind of remind me a lot of Japanese and like Tokyo's landscapes. So I thought it was a very beautiful film, and I would definitely watch this one again. Next on my list is another directorial debut from a famed actor. We have Glenn Rothen from Brian Cox. This one got some pretty negative reviews, but I feel like I'm one of the minorities who really enjoyed this film. I thought it was very wholesome with Brian Cox's character and Alan Cummings' character as well. They are brothers who haven't gotten along for a long time due to like family trauma and abuse that they went through growing up. And Alan's character left Brian's character behind at their family distillery, and there's a lot of animosity between the two characters. And everybody was calling this a Hallmark movie. And I don't know, I watch a lot of Hallmark movies because my parents love Hallmark movies, and the Hallmark channel is always on. So maybe I'm a little bit predisposed to Hallmark films and enjoying them, but I thought this one was very sweet, and I'm also part Scot, like I mentioned earlier, so I think this one was also very wholesome for me, and I am estranged from my Scottish side of my family, so it just kind of hit home for me, and a lot of like the gossip nature, passive aggressive behavior from the Scottish folks in the film just really hit home, and I related to it. I also really liked the music. I thought it was very beautiful. All of the Scottish folk music I thought was great. I loved the inclusion of that. And overall, I thought it was a great film. I also really did like the addition of Shirley Henderson. I've seen her from Bridget Jones and the Harry Potter series, so it was great to see her in a more prominent role in this film, kind of being the right-hand man to Brian Cox's distillery owner. So I really did like her performance. I also think Alexandria Shipp is also fun in the film too. I've followed her since Love, Simon, so I always like when she pops up in something. So overall, I really did enjoy this film. Maybe it doesn't really push anything, but I thought the narrative was pretty straightforward and we got the payoff in the end. A solid first time go at directing. I also like that Brian Cox is leaning different from his stereotypical character of Logan Roy, kind of going for something a little bit more softer and more wholesome. I like that. I like when actors try and do something different. So I enjoyed this film and I'll definitely be showing it to my parents. I have another animated film here on my list, and we have Space Cadet from Kid Cola. I was able to see this during a rush. I thought this was pretty wholesome and sweet. I think this would be great for kids and for their parents watching as well. I think it does remind me quite a bit of The Wild Robot that came out a couple years ago. I think it's pretty similar with another like robot character, but I do like that this was a female protagonist and she's also like an adventurer. She's going to space, and I think that's a really positive role model for a lot of young girls. I just find in a lot of films when the adventurers are male is pretty stereotypical. So I thought it was fun to see, a young girl be this adventurer. And I think if I had this film when I was younger, I would really enjoy it as a kid. So definitely a fun one. I just think, again, like it's just kind of standard, and I'm not a big animated person, so it's not like at the top of my list, but I thought it was really cute and sweet, and it got the job done. I was able to see the John Candy I Like Me documentary. It's directed by Colin Hanks. I thought this was really fun. Honestly, unexpected how great it was. I wasn't expecting too much from it just because I don't really love the whole biopic documentary. It's just such a big thing, similar to like the music biopic with California Scheming that I mentioned at the beginning. I just find this to be a very redundant genre these days, and people aren't really pushing it. This film doesn't really push anything, but I think it's very empathetic and charismatic to its subject matter, which is John Candy. I am past John Candy's like prime time. He passed away in 94 and I was born in 2001. So it just kind of brought to light how much influence John Candy has on Hollywood, and specifically what he did for Canada as a star. I thought it was brilliant to be able to see all the different interviews from the likes of Bill Murray, from Eugene Levy, to John's wife and his children. I thought it was a very beautiful documentary. I liked how we were able to dive into all the different aspects of John's career, the good and the bad, and it really did make me want to go out and like binge watch his content because I wasn't fully aware of just how prominent he was in the cinema that I grew up watching. So definitely want to go and watch Uncle Buck after seeing this one. Then in the festival park, I was able to watch the late night park movie, which was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I think I saw this on the Friday night after I got to see If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. And this one's always so much fun. I have watched this film in the past, and maybe I shouldn't have put this in my list, but I did see it at TIFF, so I wanted to add it in. I think this is so much fun, and I love that TIFF is able to provide some free movies for everybody in the public if they want to see. They're also playing like Lady Bird and some other great classics in the festival park. So it was awesome to be able to rewatch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I think this is a great film and it's always super rewatchable. At number 17 on my list, I have Epic, Elvis Presley in Concert from director Baz Luhrmann. I was really excited about seeing this film because I am a huge Baz Luhrmann fan. I love basically all of his films, Moulin Rouge, The Great Gatsby. I really do love his TV show, The Get Down. I think he has such an eccentric vision, and I'm a big fan of Baz. So when I heard that he had this like in concert documentary, I knew I had to go watch it. I did rush it and I was able to meet like some great people in line, and Baz Luhrmann showed up at the movie and people were up and dancing during the Suspicious Mind portion. This is just like a fun energy film, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. If you had a fun time with Baz Luhrmann's Elvis film from a couple years ago, I think you were going to highly enjoy Epic. As someone who's just like a casual listener to Elvis, this definitely was able to give me a little bit more insight to his music and his rehearsal process. I think that's the strongest part of this documentary, is being able to compare different footages and see the process of what Elvis would do for his Las Vegas residency each night, and how he would practice practice multiple different times, and how Baz kind of integrates the different footage together, and we get to see this like montage of the rehearsals and the different energies and input that Elvis and his singers and his band give to the performances each night. So I thought that was super cool. There's also about 45 minutes of unheard interview footage used, so you get to hear that. Also, a lot of the footage came with no audio, so the editor spent like 2 years trying to sync up the audio with the footage that they were able to obtain. So, this is true cinema, guys, true archival footage that they were able to find in the salt mines. So, very impressive, and this is definitely a passion project. And if you're a huge Elvis fan, I think you'll like this one a lot. Maybe we have a little controversial one here. I have Christy from director David Mikod. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I really liked this film. It was an unexpected hit for me. It stars Sydney Sweeney and Ben Foster. I really did enjoy this film of looking at the life of Christy Martin and her come up and the downfall, all the abuse and negativity that she faced during her time of trying to build this career of being this boxer. I really enjoyed this film. It does feel a little small at times, so that's why it's not higher up in my rankings, but I think Sydney Sweeney does give a fabulous performance in this film, and Ben Foster just blows my socks off. He is so transformative in his role, so despicable, so evil. I really did enjoy how we dived into domestic abuse in this film and how it's not just brushed over. I would have a little bit of criticism. I think we could have dived a little bit more into her sexuality a little bit more. It is like talked about quite a bit in the film, but it's kind of more surface level. I wish we would have dived a bit more into the motions of having to basically go back into the closet and feel like you have to fit into society's expectations or you're not going to have a successful career. I think that would have been interesting. Also, diving a bit more into the homophobia that Christy faced due to her appearance and not fitting into the standard glamorous housewife stereotype that she was being forced into. Also, having a little bit more of women loving women on the screen would have been nice as well, as we have Katie O'Brien right there. I also think it would have been nice if maybe Katie O'Brien was playing Christy rather than Sydney Sweeney, but I know they wanted a really big name like Sydney Sweeney to take control over the film, and I think she's also producing this film too, maybe. So, you know, that all makes sense. We are officially at the halfway point now. At number 15, I have Tuner from director Daniel Rohner. This is his first feature film. He is primarily a director of documentary features, so it's his first time like stepping behind the lens as like a fictional narrative storyteller. So I really like how he was kind of able to use some of that documentary background in this film. I also think we have some standout performances from Leo Woodall and Dustin Hoffman. I really did enjoy this one. It was kind of an unexpected, like, love. Like, I really did love this film. I think it is a little cliche at a couple points, but I think this one is just so heartfelt, and I really love Leo Woodall's character and his relationship and chemistry that he has with Havana Rose Lou. I think their romance is so beautiful. I also think Leo's character's backstory of his hearing problem and how that relates to him being this like child prodigy of playing piano, and how he's lost that passion and ability, and he's kind of feeling lost in the world and not sure what his purpose is. So I really do like that narrative. I think if they honed into that a little bit more, explore, rather than adding kind of this like thriller heist aspect into the film as well. We could have had a little bit more of a mature piece, but I do like the heist aspects. I think it's kind of thrilling, and how it all plays off at the end. It kind of ties into Havana's character is satisfying. I do like it, but I feel like we could have done a little bit more to elevate it if we stuck more to developing the storyline of Leo's purpose, where he feels he fits in, his disability, and the relationship with Dustin Hoffman's like mentor character to Leo, having a bit more screen time with him. I think that would have benefited to the film as well. All right, we're starting to get down to my top films. Here I have Frankenstein from director Guillermo del Toro. Unfortunately, I was a little disappointed with this film. I have a full review for it out on my channel already. I'll have it linked above for you guys to check it out if you have not had the chance to watch it already. I do have a lot of positives about Frankenstein. I do think the majority of the performances are pretty strong. I do like Oscar Isaac as Victor. I think the madness that he has is intoxicating, and I really do like the pacing that he gives us in the first half of the film. I think Jacob Elordi as the creature is entrancing. I think he's very, like, morphs into this character, and there are certain times with the makeup, the lighting, and like the empathetic looks that he gives, I'm like, am I sure that is Jacob Elordi and not some classically trained 50s like golden age actor? He definitely transforms into this creature film. I also think Mia Goth's Elizabeth character is very interesting, just to as somebody who studied Frankenstein in my Gothic literature class in university, to see what Elizabeth is from the book to what she is in the film is very, very fascinating. I think that is a con, but also a pro, because a con because it changes the whole structure and a lot of the purpose of the original narrative. Pro because I do like the changes and I like the development that we have with Elizabeth's character and the performance that we gain from Mia Goth. I also think the costumes, the production designs are top notch. I think those are definitely the things I would be giving the awards to. I think the costumes are so integrated into the narrative, and a lot of the structures are very comparative to like the cadavers that Victor uses and the markings on the creature. So I really love that thoughtfulness that went into it. I just think it lacks some of the magic that I was hoping I would get from it. I love Mary Shelley's work, and I was definitely lifted to a different place when I read her book. And unfortunately, when I watched the movie, I did not have that same experience. It did have the first prize runner up for the People's Choice Award, so obviously, a lot of people are fans of the film. I want to give it a second watch because I think I'm going to gain more from the second viewing, and I think some of my expectations that I had going into it will be gone, and I'll be able to see it with a little bit more fresh eyes than the bias that I had going into it the first time. So I feel like this could be adjusted, but right now, Frankenstein from Guillermo del Toro is on my list. At number 13, I have the documentary The Eyes of Ghana from award-winning director Ben Proudfoot. Ben has won twice for his documentary shorts in the past at the Oscars, and now he's dived into a full feature for documentary. And this film focuses on the cinematographer Chris Hesse in his time of being the personal cinematographer to the first Prime Minister of Ghana, Nkrumah, and all the political tensions that happened during that time, and how Chris was able to capture everything, and how all of it is in archives in London. And this is kind of like the process of him going back to those archives and getting those films digitized. We also get to see the revamping of a cinema in Ghana that they used to use frequently during Chris' youth. So I think this is a very beautiful film. It was the second film I got to see during the festival, and it's the only film that I gave 5 stars. I have heard some criticism about this documentary since, and have taken in that criticism. I have not dropped my score just because I was so emotionally captivated by this film. I do think the history and preserving it is super important. One of my passions personally is restoring and like archiving art and being able to show it to the next generation. And I think that is super important about the Eyes of Ghana, of showing the past history of the country and trying to empower the current generation. There are some criticism that this is lacking a lot of the history of Ghana. So I'm an outsider. I don't know much about the history, if I'm being honest, but I do love how focused this was on filmmaking and trying to preserve that art form and bring it out to a bigger audience. And that's like a very big pro of film, is that it can reach such a big audience. So I think there is potential for this one's being in the awards mix, getting some nominations, maybe leading up to the Oscars. I'm definitely going to keep my ear out for it just because it is Ben Proudfoot. He does have history with the Academy. I also think it will like be very sympathetic to a lot of people in the film industry, as this is a movie about film and history. It also really reminds me of the soundtrack to A Coup d'etat that came out last year and was nominated in the best documentary feature film category. So I feel like this could have a similar trajectory as that film. I have the animated film Little Emile, or the character Rain. This is from director Mila's Valid and Lanny Cho Han Jin Kwang. Totally mispronounced their names, but I really did enjoy this film. I thought it was very mature, complex. It dived deep with its narrative and was also visually stunning too. I think the character Little Emile has some very intriguing moments with the animation. It believes it's like God. So we have a couple different moments where they're doing some like earth bending with the weather and the natural landmarks. So I really did like that. I also think this is very intriguing and an interesting way to teach your children about the concept of war and the generational trauma that can come with that, and how people around us can be pretty negative and still hurt from the pain that has been bestowed upon them by our ancestors and relatives. I think this is a very like nuanced conversation about the war of Japan and Belgium. So really really did enjoy this film. I didn't know much, like I didn't know what to expect from it. I heard some awards rumblings about this one, so that's why I ended up rushing it. I made it in just like great time. I only had to wait for like 30 minutes, and it was just like me and one other person waiting to get in. So it was perfect. We got to hear from the directors, filmmakers. So it was really great to get to hear their passion behind the film and being able to produce this craftsmanship. Again, I'm not big on the animation genre, but being able to see all these variations of animation from Scarlet, Barushka, Space Cadet, and Little Emile, or the character Rain, I loved how vast they are and how different their storytelling was, and I definitely think Little Emile was the most effective like animation film I was able to see during my TIFF50. All right, we're almost at the top 10. I'm at number 11, and I have Nuremberg in that place. It's from director James Vanderbilt, and we have Russell Crowe and Rami Malek and Leo Woodall. We also have Michael Shannon and some of the like biggest actors in this film, honestly. We have Oscar winners and actors who have been in the biz for a really long time, and this all comes together into a fantastic film. Another unexpected film I did not think was going to hit as well as it did, but I think this is a really effective film with really strong performances and really does question your beliefs and what you're thinking of our current timeline. This is such a timeless film, yet very timely. I was very moved by it. There is like viewer discretion. There is real life footage of the Holocaust and concentration camps featured in this film, so it can be very hard to digest, but I think that is the purpose of the film. The first half of this film does have a little bit more of a light and more naive perspective, and once we reach the courtroom and we get to see this footage, it's completely flipped on its head, and we are just set in this grueling tension and just like ilk, just bad taste in your mouth, and you want to see these men prosecuted. And I think the moral of the film, the idea that we try and take away the humanity of Nazis, and in the reality they are humans, we have to give them their humanity, because that what makes them even more scary is the fact that they are human, they have this humanity, and they could do this to other humans. So I think that is communicated very well, specifically in the last half of the film with Rami Malek's character. I saw him in The Amateur earlier this year, and he completely makes up for that performance in this film. He is a powerhouse along with Russell Crowe. I think Russell Crowe is fantastic in this role as a very complex man who we want to see severely punished and, put to death. So I would highly suggest Nuremberg for everybody, honestly, if you have the stomach and the patience for this grueling film. I think it's much more of a procedural, like journalistic and law film rather than a war film, and I really liked that. Whew, it feels good to finally make it to number 10 on my rankings list. Here we have the newest film from Rian Johnson, Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. I really had a lot of fun with this film. I was able to rush it with a group of my friends. They were able to hold my spot while I went into Epic, and then I came out and waited with all of them, and we all got in, and it was so much fun because it was the world premiere. And honestly, this film really does live up to expectations. I think it is so bold, so new, so original, and really does keep this mystery series alive. I am a big fan of the first film and also Glass Onion. I really do like Glass Onion, but I think Wake Up Dead Man really does elevate the narrative when it comes to the Knives Out mystery franchise. I think they could have got lost in this hole of continuing the Eat the Rich narrative, but rather than going with that, Ryan goes with something completely new, and we discuss theology and the power within the church and abusing that power. So I really do like this narrative, the juxtapositions between Josh Brolin's priest character and Josh O'Connor's priest character, a more grueling, revenge-based God and a more forgiving and naive God. Really loved the discussions of theology. I would criticize that I think the ensemble characters like Kelly Spaney, Jeremy Renner, we don't get to spend as much time with them as I would have hoped. I think all of them are so much fun. I love Andrew Scott and Kerry Washington, Glenn Close. All of them are so much fun, but I think even though this film is over 2 hours long, we could have used a little bit more time with them, or we could have gotten rid of one or two of the ensemble characters just to make more space and time to get to know our characters a bit more. So we get a lot of time with Josh Brolin and Josh O'Connor's character, so it's great that we get to learn a lot about them. And I would even say Benny Blanc is kind of underutilized in the film. So that would be my criticism. Just underutilized, underdevelopment for some of the characters, just because we give other characters the time that they deserve. So a little bit of cons there, but overall, I do think it's really fun. I think it's hilarious. I really do like the humor. Josh Brolin brings a lot of the humor to light. I think Glenn Close is really great in the character too. I think she has a fantastic scene near the end of the film with Josh O'Connor. Definitely a standout, and if people want her to get nominated, that's the scene they're going to use. At number 9, I have the documentary with Hassan in Gaza. I was able to see this with the director, Kamal Al-Jifri. I think that's how you say his last name. This film is so poignant and so heartbreaking. This film was shot in 2001, so I think it also gives me a lot of perspective as I was born in 2001 and seeing the devastation that's happened to specifically Gaza and Palestine as a whole is just like earth shattering to see, what I've been able to accomplish in 24, almost 25 years, and then seeing the devastation that has happened to the Gaza Strip, specifically just in the last 2 years, is like nauseating. And I think with Hassan in Gaza is very important to show that all of this war did not happen with October 7th, but has been happening for over 2 decades, longer than that, since the siege. And the fact that, homes were being destroyed in 2001 and IDF encampments were being built very closely to these bulldoze zones is, I just think, is such a strong narrative. I also think it's very interesting that the director Kamal, he said in the post Q&A was that he was not able to edit out anything. So this was filmed over the course of I think about 48 hours during Kamal's trip to Gaza in 2001 when he was trying to find one of his prison mates that he spent time in political prison with, and he was unable to find this man during his trip, but he filmed and felt like it was very important to document what was going on in Gaza during that time, and he felt like he could not edit anything out when he rediscovered the footage, about 20 years later, when he felt like he had to bring the film to life. So, very powerful. I do have it a little bit lower just because the pacing is a little bit off with no edits happening in the film in a lot of portions. We are just kind of locked in on some scenes for a long duration of time, and sometimes that can be detrimental, and sometimes that can be very, very um, motivational and very like getting the point across significantly, specifically during this one portion when there's a lot of bombing happening in the distance. We're just stuck there for like maybe 15-20 minutes in this just one window location, going back and forth between the TV and the window and seeing the bombing in the distance. So very, very interesting. I was definitely in tears during this film. In my 8th spot, I have the short It's So Beautiful Here from director Basman Al Shifra. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. I was also able to see her during the screening of the short. I think this is a very heartbreaking film that was not supposed to be a film from Basma. That's what she said. She just filmed this one day while her and her cousin were horseback riding in Gaza, and I think it's so beautiful, and you can see that she was just having a gorgeous time with her cousin on the seashore. We get to just hear the waves in the background and see the horses on these sand dunes, and to sit in the theater and watch this film and, be told that her cousin was murdered by an IDF drone is just like so heartbreaking, and to see that it's so beautiful here in Gaza, and to see that it's being destroyed one person at a time is just very poignant. In my seventh spot, I have the documentary Put Your Soul in Your Hand and Walk. This is from director Sepideh Farsi. I think this is a extremely beautiful documentary showing the devastations once again happening to Gaza and to the young people in the city and in the country Palestine. It is just literally heartbreaking. The fact that the main protagonist that we follow in this documentary, Fatima, is 24 years old. She is a photojournalist living in Gaza and taking a lot of photos of the destruction of the war, trying to document what was going on and get that out in the world. And Septia was able to come across Fatima, and they continued this conversation over FaceTime because that was the only way Septia was able to communicate with Fatma because the borders were closed and she was never able to cross over to Gaza, and Fatma was never able to leave Gaza. So I think this is a very, very, very special documentary that everybody should be watching. Again, very poignant film. I'm 24. Fatma was 24 during the filming of this documentary, and to see that her life and her family's life was so brutally taken for trying to speak out and platform what is going on in Palestine, and how she was specifically targeted after this film was announced for the Cannes Film Festival. It I was just in tears watching the film, just hearing the hopes and dreams of Fatma, just these simple dreams of a 24-year-old, the same dreams I have as a 24-year-old, just wanting to make a difference in the world and to have our voices heard and just make it out, be able to travel, see the world. It's devastating. It's just so brutal, this documentary, but it is something everybody needs to see. It's so special and really does what is needed of a documentary, which is to capture history and to communicate to the audience that this is not okay and we need to do something about it. And if we're not going to do something, this will be a moment of history that we will forever be able to look back on and say we didn't do anything about it. And these innocent people are murdered as a result. So I think this is such a strong documentary, and that's why I have it as my number seventh place. All right, maybe I have another controversial place, but at number six, I have Sentimental Value, the newest film from Johann Trier. I think this is a very strong film, but unfortunately, I don't love it as much as The Worst Person in the World and Oslo, August 31st. That's definitely still my favorite Johann Trier film. I really do like Sentimental Value, and I think similar to Frankenstein, I need to give it a second watch so I can understand more of the nuances and pick up some of the things I didn't catch in the first time around. I really do love the performances from Stellan and Renata. I think this is a very quiet, meditative film. A lot of the performances are silent, and I think there's this one scene where Stellan and Renata, after having like a family argument, they go out to smoke and they're just looking at each other and communicating solely through their eyes. I think it's so beautiful. I really do think Stellan Skarsgård has a really strong chance of winning Best Supporting Actor for his performance in this film. I think he has a tough job now against Sean Penn for One Battle After Another, but I do think the performance is really what brings this film home and makes it so strong. So I think Stellan, he's definitely going to get that nomination out there, but I think the beauty of the family and generational trauma and how that's communicated in this film is very well done, and that's why it's so high up on my list at number six. All right, we've made it to the home stretch. We are at my top five of my TIFF 50 this year. I had such a fun time with the festival, and I think these five films are films that everybody should try and catch in the 2025-2026 film season. At number five, I have If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You from director Mary Bronstein. This is starring Rose Byrne, and it also has ASAP Rocky and Conan O'Brien in the film. I think this is just a triumph from Rose Byrne. I love her performance. This dissociative mother who feels so lost yet locked in the world that she's in. She has this tremendous monologue when she's in one of her sessions with Conan O'Brien's therapist, and she gives this huge reveal, and it gives us a lot of insight to who she is as a person and a lot of the regret and maybe depression that's been inflicted as a result. And I think that monologue is just so strong, and seeing her just struggle, yet not really try, but be so lost and locked. I think Rose gives such a phenomenal performance, and seeing Conan with this very like off-putted humor, straight humor. I think it's so well done. He is just so irksome. All of these characters you just hate. You just want to like get rid of them. But that what makes them just so genius. I also think ASAP gives a fantastic performance as well, with one of the only empathetic person that we have, really trying to look for the reason to why Rose Byrne's character ticks the way she does, but also not taking her shit, calling her out when she really does need to be like kicked in the head and be like, you're also the problem. You're adding to this situation, making it worse. You need to look at yourself from the inside and understand if you do not take care of yourself, you are going to end up just like your client. And I think showing that with her client and what happens with her client who's like a new mother, and seeing how maybe that person is more like Rose's character than she actually initially thought, was genius in my mind. And I think some of the physical performance that Rose's character has to bring is very top notch too near the end. She has some stunts that she has to do with a stunt performer, and I think that is just like a brilliant gut punch. Like I was saying at the beginning of this video, films that are lower in my list are lacking that magic, that gut punch, and this film has that, really strikes you at the end and leaves you thinking for like days afterwards. So really strong film, and I think if Rose Byrne does not show up in some nominations for Best Actress, I'm going to be very disappointed with the critics and the Academy members out there. Alrighty, at number four, I have Dead Man's Wire from director Gus Van Sant. I think this film was the most overall solid film I saw at the festival. I think from the performances, the costumes, the production design, the narrative, the direction, the pacing, all of it is top notch. It is nothing super special. It is kind of based off of a true story, but I think it has a lot of strides with the performances. It's very engaging with Dacre Montgomery and Bill Skarsgård in the lead performances. I think the pacing is just top notch alongside the narrative. We're able to be engaged fully the entire duration of the film. I was at the edge of my seat. I think the recreations of the real life footage, of like the news footage, and recreating it for the screen was great in this dramatic role, especially like some of the scenes where like they are falling on the ice. I thought that was very well done, very well executed from the directing standpoint, but also the acting standpoint. I think the overall feel, kind of this 70s reporter cop vibe. I really liked it. I wish more films would have that grungy feel. I think the reporter aspect, I really liked that, and seeing the character get to investigate, like, kind of reminded me of September 5th a little bit, and how we get to kind of like the criminals are seeing these news reports and learning in time with the public, and then that can kind of change where they are going to go with their plan. So I really like that. I also think this is a very nuanced story, even though this was set in the 70s, I believe. Everything that's going on with Luigi Mangione, it's very, very timely. So I had a great time with Dead Man's Wire, and overall a very solid film, and I would rewatch this one. I don't know if it's going to get many awards nominations, even though it did have great reviews out of its premiere at Venice. I think people did have um, positive receptions to it out of TIFF, but again, it's not really anything super special. I just think it's executed very well. Love the style, the acting. So this is just like a film that I really enjoyed. I thought about it a lot afterwards, and I had to put it high up because I just had such a great time with it and really dug it. All right, top three films from TIFF 50. I'm ready. Number three, Hamnet from Chloe Zhao. Fantastic film. I have a full review for it already on my channel. I have it linked above for you guys to be able to watch it if you've not had the chance to catch it. But Hamnet is just such a beautiful film. It's about family and the depths that you will go to protect them and keep your legacy in check, and also how art can be a beautiful tool to be able to heal us from some of the darkest times that we've sunk into. So, such incredible performances from Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal. I definitely think Hamnet is going to have really strong chances at the award season, specifically Golden Globes and Oscars. I definitely think we'll be seeing Best Feature Film, Best Directing, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor. I feel like cinematography and costumes could also be strong points as well. I think this is just such an emotional film. We don't have a lot of films that really hit your heart. And I think Hamnet is one of those films that really does tug on your soul, your humanity, and it does have more classic approach as well, as it has some Shakespeare tinges to it. It has Paul Mescal is playing William Shakespeare, and he does do quite a few soliloquies from Shakespeare's Hamlet, and we have some mixed scenes from like Macbeth as well. So a very intriguing film as we are mixing different emotions and classically trained scenes as well. So I feel like this is definitely an aim to more of a classic Academy approach, but with such nuanced performances and raw guttural scenes from Jessie Buckley. I think this is definitely going to gain the attention from not just the older generation in the Academy, but also like all ages in the Academy. So I think this will be a really strong player throughout the 2025-2026 awards season. I think people should really go see Hamnet because it's just so beautifully done, and I'm definitely going to go see it for a second time when it finally comes out. All right, top two guys. In second place, I have our Palme d'Or winner for 2025. It Was Just an Accident from director Jafar Panahi. I thought this film was so stunning and just, again, on the edge of my seat watching this film. The tension, the ensemble piece, just so well done. I also have a full length review for this film. I'll have it linked above for you guys to check it out. I had a great time being able to watch this film, got to hear some words from Jafar at the beginning of the film, and how the passion that he had for this to be able to make it during a time of censorship and wanting to support the power freedom movement and stand up against the Iranian regime. I think this narrative of taking revenge into your own hands and making your decision of paying back your tormentors is very unique, and I think having personal experience of being in prison as a political prisoner really does give Jafar a lens that a lot of directors just don't have that experience, and being able to transform that into a piece of art is not something you could say about a lot of directors. So I think him being able to use his story and some of the people that he's come along his path's story, being able to, you know, project those stories out for a grander audience to be able to hear is extremely important. I think this film's pacing and the acting from specifically non-professional actors is just like stunning. This film is just so outstanding. I really do agree that it is the perfect choice for the Palme d'Or winner of 2025. I think this is the narrative similar to One Battle After Another that is really strongly needed in this moment, talking against people in power and the abuse that they can hold against the general public, and how political prisoners, censorship, fascism is on the rise, and that we need to stay strong. And if we don't fight for freedom, then we won't have freedom, but also still being able to divide ourselves from the monsters and keep our humanity and not let them take it. So, very interesting film. I think the ending, you could hear a needle drop. It is crazy. Another film I will definitely be rewatching time after time. It is such an outstanding film. It was just an accident. My number two spot. Alright guys, we finally made it to the very end of my ranking TIFF50 video. I'm so excited to finally let you guys know what my favorite film that I was able to see at the Toronto International Film Festival for its 50th anniversary. And that film and my number one spot would have to go to The Testament of Anne Lee from director Mona Fastvold. I think this film is just perfection. It's so well done, so creative, so bold, so original, and I had such an amazing time being able to see this on 70mm at the festival. I got to hear from Mona, got to hear from Amanda, I got to hear from Lewis. This was a fantastic experience. I think this film is so hypnotic, and I really did enter into a whole different world while watching this film. I think the pacing is very well done, very intrinsic, and like capturing you into the story of Anne Lee, her journey, her quest to just be there for God and push his word forward and to bring more people into his worship. I think the scenes of worship with the choreography and the songs are just so bold and just eye-catching. Definitely scenes I will be, rewatching time after time. I think the synchronicity of the movements is just so flawless. There's scenes where the actors are really getting heavy into their breathing towards the worship, and I was starting to get in tuned with them with their breathing. I wanted to like join them, get out of my seat, start dancing, start worshiping, get into the interaction. Very, very cohesive, very, very energetic and just emboldening. Such a fascinating film. I am not a religious person, and I found that I was able to gain a lot from the theology of the film. So I think if you are somebody who is a religious person, you would also gain similar aspects from the film, like me. Obviously, as someone who's non religious, I'm also able to gain different aspects from the film too, specifically the celibacy and how that relates to maybe some of the earlier sexual trauma that Anne Lee faced. I think that is kind of battling between, did God actually tell you this, or did you experience something when you were younger and that's influenced how you've believed and how you grew up? So very, very nuanced storytelling. This is based off of a true woman and her struggles that she did as a female leader in a church who was persecuted because she was a female leader and would go against like the Protestants' religion. So very interesting. I think some of the scenes at the end are really climactic, and there's this like fiery energy that's building throughout the entire course of the film, and visually that is paid off at the end and also emotionally too. So I think this is a strong visionary film from Mona, a female voice trying to uplift another female leadership in history. So I think this is such a strong film. It has not been picked up, and I'm so devastated because I was really hoping it would come out in 2025, but I don't know. There's still a possibility that it will come out in November or December. I think this would be like a perfect December release time. It could also do well like in November during American Thanksgiving, as there is scenes of like immigration to Massachusetts and being settlers. And I guess that kind of plays into the themes of American Thanksgiving. So I would really, really, really hope that this film gets picked up and we get to see this on the big screen soon, because I'd like to get another chance to be able to see this on the big screen, and hopefully people can see it in 70 millimeter how Mona intended it to be seen in. All right, that was my recap rankings for my TIFF 50. I'm so happy I was able to finally get around to make this ranking video. I had such a fun time at the film festival this year, my 5th year attending the film festival, and I was able to squeeze in 31 titles, so super proud of myself. Had a great time meeting new people, getting to try out new genres, and seeing some films I didn't think I'd get the chance to see. I'm so happy with my top 5. I had a really fun time seeing these films and was definitely moved by specifically my top 3. I also think the documentaries that are in my top 10 are some that will never leave me and significantly influenced me during the film festival, and would be pieces of art that I would continue to suggest other people to check out for years to come. I am really, really excited to see how the Toronto International Film Festival was able to reflect in the 2025-2026 awards season for the next couple months ahead. I definitely think the People's Choice Award Hamnet in my 3rd place ranking spot is going to have a huge influence over the awards season this year. I think it's going to be right up there with Sinners and One Battle After Another. I also think films like It Was Just an Accident, Sentimental Value, Wake Up Dead Man can also be significant films during the awards season too. So I'm very grateful that I was able to see all these films, and I was able to, book time off to go to this film festival. It's definitely the thing I look forward to the most all year long. I save my money and I talk with my friends. We all just anticipate TIFF every single year. So it was such a blessing to be able to go to TIFF 50 this year and see all of these different screenings. I'd love to hear what you guys think of my rankings for TIFF 50. If you guys have any thoughts of the movies that I was able to see, let me know in the comments. If you guys have had a chance to see these films as well, if you were able to go to TIFF, let me know your top 3 in the comments. I would love to hear that and have a little discussion going on. If you enjoyed my ranking video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you don't miss out on any of my videos. I have a couple other TIFF related videos that I'm going to be posting, maybe 1 or 2 more reviews and some vlog videos, and then I'll have my October fall pre-award season predictions going up. So we're really starting to get into the thick of it now that the film festivals are starting to wrap up, with New York Film Festival, coming to a close very soon. So I am excited. I feel like we're just getting started with all of these film galore. So please have a conversation down below and give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate all your interaction, as I love to grow my community and just have conversations with other cinema lovers like yourself. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I have lots of videos for all you guys to look forward to. So I'll be seeing you soon. Bye.